Hi, we're now going on with the Chapter 10, Thinking and Language, talking about fixation. And here's the definition. Inability to see a problem from a new perspective, impediment to problem solving. So it's more or less being too close to a problem. You are stuck at seeing it one way, and you are unable to sort of take that step back. I don't know if the word is look outside the box, or see the trees through the forest. But you're so focused on seeing something a certain way, you're unable to solve a problem. And what was the example here? Following here's the example, a matchstick problem. How would you arrange 6 matches to form 4 equilateral triangles? By and large, most people see this, and I know I did the first time I saw this problem years ago, is you think very two-dimensionally. We just throw it, they're on the ground as it is. Obviously you have gravity in there, so they're, you sit there and you try and play with these matchsticks and come up with a bunch of equilateral triangles in different formats using a two-dimensional surface. But the problem can be solved only when you go to a three-dimensional solution. And here you have a pyramid, which of course will have 4 equilateral triangles. Remember the bottom, the base is one of them as well. So that's fixation. All right, another definition here. It sounds very similar to fixation, but it is functional fixedness. It's a tendency to think of things only in terms of their usual functions. Again, another impediment to problem solving. And in this case, so many examples come to mind. I'll do the one that's in the book here in a second. But, you know, they use the screwdriver example in the book for turning a screw and a penny would work. I think of using a screwdriver to open paint can lids. A lot of people look around for a specific paint can opening device when a screwdriver would work, and you know that's showing a lack of functional fixedness when you just use screwdrivers. But here's the example, the big example from the book. The candle mounting problem using these materials. How would you mount the candle on the bulletin board? So you've got matches, a box, matches, thumbtacks, and a candle. So, you know, you got all these ways of thinking about how am I going to do this, you know, and you're trying to use the tacks to push through the candle into the bulletin board. A million different ideas come to mind, but if you're dealing with functional fixedness, you're stuck with, in this case, the matchbox can only hold matches. And then, you know, if you can think differently and approach it differently, you could see, hey, maybe the matchbox can hold something besides matches. And that's where you would end up with this solution, okay? And you can see that it's using the thumbtacks to hold the matchbox to the bulletin board and then put the candle in it. The fact that many of you probably came to the same conclusion that I did, that candle's way too heavy, it would just rip those tacks right out of the bulletin board, I would agree with you. But let's say, for the sake of simplicity here, those are super strong, long tacks that would hold it into the wall. Okay? So just go with it. All right, availability heuristic. This is a cool term. Estimating the likelihood of events based on their availability in memory. So there are certain things in our lives that are jump more readily to the front of our consciousness than other things. If instances come readily to mind, perhaps because of their vividness, we presume such events are common. And the perfect example is the airplane crash. I mean, there are people who are terrified to fly. And there's a lot of different reasons there. I mean, the crashing is one of them, the fear of crashing, but also there's a myriad of other things. But if you were to look at the statistics, you are much more likely to die driving in a car to and from the airport than you are in an airplane crash going from airport to airport. So percentage-wise, you are much safer in an airplane than you are in a car crash. But because car crashes happen numerous times every day, all over our country, all over the world,
They really have to be outlandish car crashes to really be something that stands out at us, or you know, sticks in our memory very well. They may, you know, they may be making the news, but you know, after a while, you've seen so many car crashes on the news, you just like, oh, another car crash, another car crash, and some of them can look worse than others, but for the most part, they're not. They're definitely not extremely vivid, or there's no explosions by and large, so those don't stick out in your mind. But when a plane crashes, there's usually, you know, an explosion, you know, wings getting ripped off, and just the awareness that, you know, so many people in this one tube, this big long tube of people, is their lives were possibly extinguished. That sticks out in your mind, so you think of it as, hey, that probably happens more often than car crashes, and it's not the case. To give you another term here with the word heuristic in it is representative heuristic. I don't have a slide for it, but it's to judge the likelihood of things in terms of how well they represent particular prototypes is representative heuristic. And I like this little problem they pose here. It's, in other words, you're using a heuristic to quickly solve a problem because you're using a prototype, and so it's a quick solution. But like I said before with heuristics, faster than an algorithm, but more prone to error. And here's the problem in the book, and I'm gonna read it to you. A stranger tells you about a person who is short, slim, and likes to read poetry, and then asks you to guess whether this person is more likely to be a professor of classics at an Ivy League university or a truck driver. Which would be the better guess? And of course, if you're like most people, you answered professor because the description seems more representative of Ivy League scholars than of truck drivers, okay? But when you actually look at the percentages worldwide, there's very few Ivy League classics professors. I mean, there's only 8 schools in the Ivy League, and how many at each school are possibly, you know, classics professors? You know, 3 at each. So 3 times 8, 24 people in the world that could possibly be short, slim, and like reading poetry. Whereas you look at the number of truck drivers in the world, and there are way more truck drivers. Okay. And so the percentages are in the favor of that person most likely being a truck driver because just sheer numbers, okay? So that's another example. All right, now we're on confirmation bias. It's a tendency to search for information that confirms one's preconceptions, okay? And sort of not looking for information. We don't tend to look for information that would disconfirm our preconceptions. It's just not how we're hardwired. So the example here is the 246 sequence that's in the book, and this was a experiment proposed by a guy named Watson. Wasson. Wasson gave students the 3-number sequence 246 and asked them to guess the rule he had used to devise the series. Okay. The rule was simple. Any 3 ascending numbers. That's what he had. Okay? Before submitting their answers, the students generated their own sets of 3 numbers, and each time Wasson told them whether their sets conformed to this rule. Once they had done enough testing to feel certain they had the rule, they were to announce it. So they were constantly coming up and asking him questions, but they kept doing it in a way probably that he could have said yes to if you said 8. Is 8 the next one? Is 8 the next number in the solution? And he would have said yes, but you could have also put 7. You could have put 11. You could have put 13, because any 3 ascending numbers could have gone 4, 6, 13, 4, 6, 56. Okay? All right. Okay, the result, seldom right but never in doubt, most of Wasson's students convinced themselves of the wrong rule. Typically they form the wrong idea. Maybe it's counting by 2s and then search only for confirming evidence by testing 6, 8, 10, 100, 102, 104, and so forth. Such experiments reveal that we seek evidence that will verify our ideas more eagerly than we seek evidence that might refute them, as I said, okay? And then the second one is business managers. When someone's hiring, when they're looking to hire people, a lot of managers will look at who they hired and look at how well they turned out, okay? And be like, oh, look how I'm good at evaluating talent. But we tend to not follow everybody we turned away. So you can think about every single job that you have to hire for, and you may have anywhere, let's say, from 4 to 20 applicants for a job, and you do this pretty much all day, every day as your job, and you look at the course of the last year, you've hired, let's say you've hired 10 people for your business, and you're very proud of yourself for what you've done. You probably didn't fall around literally the hundreds of other people that you turned away and how well they did in a follow-up job that they may have gotten, or what they may, or some of the accomplishments they may have had in other fields or whatever, and they may have been far better than anything that the people did that you did hire. And so you could kind of go around thinking you are a much better eye of talent than you actually are. And I think probably the easiest example of this also is probably athletes, pro athletes. It is always baffling to me, some of the people who got passed on, either going in to, let's say, the NFL, and they end up being fantastic players, or some of the players that make it to the NFL weren't even, they were either barely or not even recruited out of high school. It happens all the time, and you begin to wonder, recruited for college, what I'm saying. You may look at, in the case of Florida State, Alabama, any of these schools, and they're always patting themselves on the back of great recruiting classes, and rightfully so. But then you get guys like the receiver there for the Patriots, Edelman. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? And he's just been solid the last several years. He's gotten better and better and better. Another example. What's his thing named? The linebacker for the Green Bay Packers. Is it Clay Matthews? I think that's who it is. He got one scholarship offer outside of coming out of high school to play college football, and he decided not to take it, and he walked on to the University of Southern California. Walk on. Paid his own money to go to school there, and eventually did earn a scholarship, and then of course he's probably one of the top 3 linebackers in the league today. He's a monster, and it's like, and not to mention his dad played in the NFL. It baffles me how they missed that guy. Okay, I'm going on and on. Sorry.